Ilene Meckley. She's a speaker, coach, and trainer who also assists BRI Talks in attracting and welcoming new members to join our vibrant community, ensuring they engage, thrive, and benefit from our resources and networking opportunities. As the passionate owner of REACH, which stands for Relationships Engaging in Activities, Caring, and Helping, Ilene firmly believes that when you work from the heart, you're never hard at work. Welcome, Ilene, to the BRI Talk stage.
Hey, everybody. I'm very excited to be here. And I really want to thank Carrie Lee for starting BRI Talks and for giving us this opportunity. I love all the speakers I've heard, and I know I look forward to all the other ones. And we really appreciate everyone who's listening right now or listening in the future. My topic is all about stomping out ants. Now, I mean automatic negative thoughts. Okay, why an ant can cause you to meet faith over fear. Whoops, I just went to the wrong one. I want you to think about it for a minute. I creep in when you doubt, making you want to shout. But if you think positively and give me a route, I'll quickly be out. Think of a little ant saying that. I'm small and pesky, invading your mind. I cause negativity of the worst kind, but with awareness and challenge, I'm easy to find. I appear without warning, causing distress, but with gratitude and positivity, you can suppress. Spot me and replace me, and you'll feel your best. So I want you to think for a moment about some common ones that are your common ants. And so they are basically things that you're thinking about all the time. I'm not good enough. If I fail, it will be a disaster. Everyone else is more successful than me. I can't handle this. It's too much for me. I always make mistakes. I want to share a few of the reasons I listed these in personal experiences. I was married for 29 years and found that I needed to be in a situation where I needed to have a divorce. Now, you know, 29 years of marriage is a long time. I'm now happily married to another gentleman who's sitting next to me, my tech support here. And we'll be married 15 years. And sometimes people will ask me, so how long have you been married? And I'm now comfortable in saying, you mean to the same person? And they'll laugh. And I'll say, well, the reason I'm telling you this is I'm actually going to be celebrating my 50th anniversary to two different people in a few years. And I've really learned that it is important to think you're good enough no matter how long you've been married and what you've done. So that's one of the reasons I put. If I fail, it will be a disaster. I am the mother of 5 children. I've worked really hard at giving them the best life I could and being confident. Did it always work that way? The things I wanted it to? Not always. But guess what? It normally wasn't always a disaster when things happened. Everyone is more successful than me. Well, I'm sure every one of us have seen people speak or seen people build businesses or run organizations, and you think, wow, look at them. Well, I think you have to turn it around and say, look at you, look at me. I can't handle this. This is too much for me. I was in a hospital for 5.5 months after being hit by an 18-wheeler truck. And people always say to me, how can you go through something like this? How did you do it? And I always think, I don't know, but I had strong faith and that helped me get through it. You know, I always make mistakes. You know, when I was thinking about that one, but they're automatic thoughts, I thought, well, I think sometimes people think making a mistake is something you've done wrong and it's an automatic thought, negative thought. I like to look at it and think, okay, what can I learn from it? So it's one of those iffy ants. I'm not sure I'd stomp it out right away, but I would evaluate it. Choices for shaping your life that prevent those ant invasions. I want you to think about it. The choice is yours, okay? You shape your own life. You lead your own life. You are the one who's in control of your thoughts. No one else is. And you really need to be responsible to take charge of it. I always tell people that you can choose happily ever after stories or nightmares. I had a chance to think about what was one of my, nightmare stories that I turned into happily ever after. Well, during my 5.5 month stay, I was told that I might have to have my right foot amputated. And my family was all worried, like, how are you feeling about this? Well, I love to dance. And I know my family all knows I love to dance. So when they said, how do you feel about this? And they look so sad, my family standing around my hospital bed, I thought, okay, I will still live happily after, and I'll learn to dance if I have to on one foot or however it is. And since that time, I have to share with you that one of the ways I get rid of these ants is I love that song, I Feel Better When I'm Dancing. And so you can always turn something into a happily ever after story. It can be tough. It really can be tough. One of the ones that has been the toughest for me is losing our son. It'll be 2 years in September. And I always thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing that could ever happen. And then I realized, you know what? I'm not going to learn to live without Sammy, but I am learning constantly to live with all the love that he left behind and looking at the pictures and creating those wonderful memories that I will never go away. Have even turned some of those experiences into happily ever after memories is what I'm calling them. You know, gratitude and ungratefulness, you know, that will prevent ant invasions. All of these will be preventing ant invasions, taking charge of your destiny, you know, being happily ever after in your stories and creating those memories. And gratitude and ungratefulness, there's just so much for us all to be grateful for, but ungratefulness can lead to a big challenge in your life. So how do you prevent the ants from getting in? Well, we certainly could look for something to spray. And it's funny that it's showing ant spray. I love something called, it's going to be sounding a little funny, called unicorn snot. And what it is a glitter lotion. And I'll rub it over. I don't know if you can see my glitter, but I'll rub that over instead of using a spray. I loved what Will was talking about, the bow ties. Well, if you can see this, whoops, I think it's upside down. My dad loves suspenders, and he was definitely a great mentor for me, and someone that I cherish, of course, everything I learned from him. And so when Willie started talking about the bow ties, I thought, well, I never realized suspenders could help me from getting ants, automatic negative thoughts. So you never know what it can be to prevent what you need to prevent an ant from getting in. You can use thought journaling. You got to pay attention to emotional triggers. When I was hit by the 18-wheeler truck, fortunately, I was unconscious immediately, but I still suffer from what people call PTSD. But mine's a little different. You see, when I have that PTSD instead of that post-traumatic stress syndrome, I start to think of instead, perfect time, stay determined. Perfect time, stay determined. So I know an emotional trigger could be bad weather or some kind of traffic or going down a road where, you know, I might think an 18-wheel truck will cross the highway and hit us again head on. So I really pay attention to them and substitute them with different thoughts and positive thoughts. Monitoring self-talk, that's important. That is so important to do. I always like to say, don't use the words I can't, because it means I certainly am not trying. Use the words I can, which stand for I certainly am now. So the minute that ant creeps in, start to think, I can, I certainly can. Being in an all or nothing mood, how many times have we all experienced that? I always like to relate the story when my 5 children were growing up, when they were in an all or nothing mood saying, I'm bored. How many of you have experienced children who say, I'm bored, right? Or maybe you've even thought, I'm bored. Well, I would try to determine whether this was one of those moods, whether they just were going to be in the mood no matter what, or they really wanted to get out of it. So I might say to one of my children, Michael, so if you could do anything in the world right now, be a movie star in a movie, take a rocket to space, what would you do? And if he even would say, well, how could I do that? I knew there was hope to get him in that out of that mood. Okay, so be careful. If you're in an all or nothing mood, it can be hard to get out. But sometimes when you hear or see that ant creeping in, think about something else that can get you out of that all or nothing mood. And then it's always important to reflect on your emotional responses and be sure you're not reacting. Okay, it's important to identify and acknowledge negative thoughts. It really is important. You want to challenge and question the validity. You want to replace them with positive alternatives, and you always want to reframe the situation. And you want to implement healthy coping strategies, whether it's, you know, yoga, meditating, taking a walk, using what I like, essential oils, reading something positive, whatever it is, you want to identify and acknowledge the negative thoughts, and then you want to be able to do something about them. Well, I believe it's time to start a Stomp Out ANTS campaign, okay? To start your own Stomp Out ANTS campaign. And I want to invite all of you to choose to become an optimistic realist, okay? And an optimistic realist is someone who knows, okay, a negative thought could pop in there, but you choose to replace it with something positive. That's what an optimistic realistic person does, I believe. And I want to share a quote. It's one of my dad's favorite quotes. Start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible, by St. Francis of Assisi. And I mentioned all the different situations I've been in my life and experiences. And that helped me to realize that there was something I could do, and it was possible to do what I needed to. I just want to share with you that I believe faith in God is the most powerful tool for managing and overcoming negative thoughts. It provides comfort, strength, purpose, and community support. And the spiritual perspective helps shift your focus from negativity to positivity, fostering resilience and a hopeful mindset. You know, I just want to talk to you for a few more minutes about a couple things that I think are so important. And that is the word choice. You know, when you are thinking about something you need to do and you have to use your optimistic, realistic skills, I want you to think, am I saying I can't exercise today and you know you need to exercise? Or do you say, I'm choosing not to? If you substitute the word choice, choosing not to versus can't, that can't, the ants won't get in. But the minute you use that can't, it's almost like giving yourself permission to fail. Recently, I fell twice. And when I fell twice, I hit my head really hard. It was within a matter of a few days. So all of a sudden, my family was saying to me, you've got to use the walker. You've got to use a walker. And I said to each one of them as they would talk to me, wait a minute. I worked really hard to learn to walk again when I was in that experience for 5.5 months in a hospital and years after. I don't want to use a walker. And then my youngest son said to me, why is that? I said, I don't know. It makes me look old. He goes, oh, we're talking about how you look? He said, I want to remind you of something. When I was a young kid and I had to be one of the few people wearing a bike helmet when I rode a bike, I told you I didn't like the way it made me look. And you said, well, I'm sorry you don't like it, but it's how it'll keep you safe. He said, Mom, it's time to substitute your thought and choose to be safe. Well, a few days later, I had written a post about accepting and getting rid of my automatic negative thought when it came to my walker. And in the comments was a comment from my son from my post that said, walkers are for winners. And I have to share with you that every time I'm using my walker now, I feel a lot differently than I did before. So I really want you to realize that you too can choose your own thoughts, get rid of the can'ts, stomp out your ants, and remember that it's so much more important to have faith over fear. Well, I would love to help you when your ant sprays do not work. And here's my contact information. And I would love to do a consultation with you as well. And so please contact me. And Terry Lee, I just want to thank you so much for inviting me to participate today.